HR Insights is a monthly program that focuses on provocative and timely issues relevant to the HR community. Upcoming programs on October 6th, Peter Norlander is going to host remote work policy panel. And on November 3rd, Professor Arup Varma is going to host a program on creating an equitable workplace for all, HR's primary role. I would like to take this opportunity to recognize Dr. Peter Norlander, the new Director of Masters of Human Resources program, and he's going to help with the questions that are being texted in to us when we get to the question and answer period. I'd also like to recognize Ann DeVita, Jennifer Fernandez, Allison Davis, and Rick Sinek, who are Loyola staff members instrumental in the production of HR Insights. Just a couple rules. Please mute your microphones. We are recording, so please send your questions through chat. And again, Professor Norlander will collect the questions and direct those on. Okay. It takes me great pleasure in introducing our expert panel. We have with us Julie Dreixler, is the Vice President and Chief Financial Human Resource Officer of the Graham Media Group. She oversees all aspects of human resources, including recruiting, training, employee relations, compensation, and benefits for her company. Julie has extensive human resource experience, having worked in a variety of progressive leadership roles with Cardinal Health, Citibank, Sara Lee, and GE Capital. Julie is active in the Chicago community with the Girl Scouts USA and Human Resource Management Association of Chicago. This is Julie's second time on HR Insights. Thank you for joining us again. We also have with us Kim Bors, who is Chief Human Resource Officer at Dover Corporation. She is responsible for all global human resource functions, including compensation, benefits, HR operations, talent acquisition, talent management, organizational effectiveness, leadership development, team engagement, and corporate communication. Ms. Bohr has more than 35 years of global HR experience across a multiple of industries in both senior human resource and general management roles. Ms. Bors also serves on the board of the American Heart Association and is chairperson of the board of Cole Children's Museum of Greater Chicago and is a member of the Economic Club of Chicago. I would like to begin the discussion providing some context for this session of how HR encourages innovation. And then I will ask our two speakers to share their company's mandate for innovation and the role that HR plays in encouraging innovation. Then we'll open the session up to questions from our audience. The pandemic has unleashed extraordinary amounts of innovation as organizations have had to cope with major disruptions in supply lines, markets, labor force, and the very nature of work itself. Employees at all levels knew that they were fighting to save the company and probably more importantly, their jobs. The pandemic accelerated technology for working remotely, product home delivery, and thankfully home entertainment. Not only did companies and jobs survive, but the economy did well. Without a doubt, the confluence of talent, effort, and advancements in knowledge miraculously created multiple vaccines for COVID-19, and within less than a year, over 5 billion doses have been delivered. Once again, business has delivered when the world was in danger. Even before the pandemic, leaders recognized that innovation was the key ingredient for maintaining a competitive position and expanding new markets. The need for innovation has not changed, but as we enter the post-pandemic world, can the level of innovation be maintained as opportunities for growth in new markets and competition increase? And certainly competition for employees increase. Before examining specific HR strategies and policies for encouraging innovation, I'd like to just define it a little bit to provide, some additional context. First, there are two major categories of innovation. There's product and service innovation and process innovation. Product and service innovation focuses on developing new products and services, whereas process innovation creates cheaper and better quality products and services. Both forms of innovation drive company success, but even though related, may require different strategies, policies, and practices to achieve. Second, both forms of innovation come from employees who must imagine how things can be different and are willing to take the risk to advance those ideas. Innovative employees must have the knowledge to develop original ideas, be motivated to invest additional effort, usually beyond what is required from their jobs, to bring the idea to fruition. They must have the ability to articulate these ideas to others so that they will support their efforts and have the confidence that they will not be punished for instigating change. It's a big order. In fact, almost every major element for which HR is responsible represents an opportunity to innovate. Recruiting and retaining talent with the capability to innovate might be an example of this, would be screening employees for curiosity and risk-taking. Motivating employees through financial rewards can be gain sharing, Scanlon plans, which encourage process improvement. Certainly there's performance management, creating jobs and organizational structures that foster innovation, RD departments, cross-functional teams, opportunities for work, developing managers and employees with innovation capabilities. Certainly you have to have leaders that are willing to listen and encourage employees, and certainly creating systems for documenting, evaluating, and implementing innovation. All of these come under human resources. Of course, human resources supports leadership, and eventually leadership has to be committed, but human resources provides that infrastructure. Okay, with that said, I probably rushed through that pretty fast. I would like to begin the discussion by asking each panel member to take 5 to 10 minutes to share how their company's mandate and strategies for innovation and what their role is in that. Kim, would you like to start?
Sure. Thanks, Dow, and thanks for the privilege of sharing this panel with Julie. We really appreciate the chance to talk about our organization. So with that, I want to just give a quick overview, and I'm going to share my my presentation here very briefly, just to give you a sense. And as Dow mentioned, COVID really drove an interesting time for all of us. I call one of the silver linings of COVID really around the new mindset around being agile, being creative, finding innovative solutions. Imagine 2 years ago, would we have been on Zoom calls like this with the same intensity that we are now? So it really has driven a lot. Let me tell you briefly about Dover Corporation. We are a multi-billion-dollar diversified global manufacturer. Innovation is at the core and heart of everything that we do to serve our customers. To give you a sense of dimension, we are a public company. We turn about $7 billion annually in revenue. We describe ourselves in 5 different operating segments, and made up of 18 individual companies, but I would tell you many, many more brands and lines of business. We have about 24,000 employees globally. Half of those are here in the US, and half of those span across about 40 additional countries. So we've been around for a while. We're a very acquisitive company. So we've grown through the addition of businesses into our portfolio. And just to give you a glimpse of that, those 5 segments really represent a lot of different technology, many different customer segments. And just to name a few things that may touch your lives every day, if you go to a gas station, it's very likely that you are pumping gas with a nozzle, a handle that says OPW on the handle, a Dover company. It's possible that your the fuel system itself is a Wayne system, also a Dover company. Over here you see this garbage truck at the top of the chart, that is a Heil garbage truck. So possibly in your neighborhood, you may have your garbage picked up or your recycling containers tipped by a Heil system. Refrigeration and food equipment, you'll find our, if you've been to Walgreens late, you'll see a digital screen. Those are our refrigeration and food equipment offers. So those are some that you come in contact with. But as Dow mentioned, the innovation that really has contributed to the development of vaccines, we also contributed with our Colder Products CPC business and some of our pump solutions that were actually used in the development of the vaccines. So truly, these applications touch every part of our lives. So without a culture of innovation, it would really be impossible for us to address all these end markets. So I see HR's role in this as very instrumental in creating this culture of innovation. If you start over here on the left side, these are Dover's 5 values. We use these throughout all of our operating organizations globally. I highlighted 2: collaborative entrepreneurial spirit and respects and values people, because they really directly contribute to that sense of creating this culture of innovation where we value diversity of ideas and experiences. And the fact that we have a diverse organization really leads to even more innovation, more creative, more thinkers outside the box. That leadership mindset, it has to be broad. It's not just the engineering and R&D teams. It's got to be pervasive across the senior leadership of all functional areas. And it really deals with allowing people to experiment, to have failures, to try new adventures, to get out into the marketplace. And what we sometimes call it is ring fencing, or protecting those ideas and the people that are working on those, to give them space to have a failure and not be reprimanded, but rather be rewarded. So creating that culture of valuing all these differences and people that think outside the box. Sometimes you think, oh, I think that person went off the ranch. But in fact, those are the way innovative new offers are oftentimes created, either by something that didn't work and failed, but it created a new opportunity. So it's really about instilling that in the mindset of the company. And tying that then to how do we reward our teams? Does it incent our employees to be more innovative? In fact, in some cases it does, but for sure we want to reward and recognize. So we have 2 aspects that I'll highlight. We have something called a Growth and Innovation Award. And this is a very selective group of people that are evaluated every year through submissions from all of our businesses. And we really provide special restricted stock grants to them. It could be an individual, it could be a team, but it's really for contributions to the growth of the company in an area that is new. It's a new market, a new customer, a new technology, something that really adds to the growth, but it's really focused around the innovation of something that's different. And as Dow said, it could be a product or service. It also could be a process, something that helps drive down cost or helps us to create a higher quality. So there are lots of ways that we would recognize and reward. And then lastly, I would just mention, we have a very relatively new global recognition tool that we have branded Dover Celebrates. And it really is a very public-facing, non-financial way to really recognize achievements. And we link that back to those 5 values, and we recognize people for their going above and beyond. All of this also takes into account that many times innovation leads to patents, leads to development of intellectual property. And of course, we want to recognize that. In many of our operating companies, we have walls of fame, essentially, demonstrating patents that have been achieved by work groups of employees over many, many years. So that's what I would share, some of the exciting culture that we're creating at Dover around innovation.
Well, thank you very much, Kim. That certainly gives us a great context of what's going on in the company. Julie, I guess you're up. If you could share what's going on at Graham
Sure,
Media.
sure. Well, first I have to say, Kim, I love that you had that garbage, that hydraulic system for the garbage trucks. I've been in Texas and I've seen those trucks go along, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so cool to see those arms go up and down and just, grab that garbage. So now I know who makes those. So that's kind of cool. You don't see that here in Chicago, in the alleyways here. So anyways, thanks again, Dow, for allowing me to speak. I am Julie Dreixler. I'm with Graham Media Group, and Graham Media Group is comprised of 7 local media hubs, Graham Digital and Social News Desk. And what we are involved in is really delivering local news, programming, advertising solutions, and digital media tools for TV, for online, for mobile, for podcasts, and audio devices. We are dynamic local brands that extend well beyond the traditional TV set. And we'd like to say we're the first informers. We are, the work that we do helps inform and celebrate and knits together the communities in which we serve. We're headquartered here in Chicago, but there's only about 5 of us in the corporate office. We have about 1,000 employees across the US. We operate in 6 states. So we have 2 TV stations or media hubs that are in Texas. We have a station that is in Roanoke, Virginia. We have actually 3 stations that operate out of Florida, and then 1 in Detroit, Michigan. So as you can see, we have a lot of, state, not only federal laws that we follow, but specific state laws that, we deal with. Our Graham Digital Group that I spoke of is a digital media and technology development group. And that's where a lot of our innovation comes in from our company. And then we also have Social News Desk, which is, has probably about 2,500 worldwide newsroom customers. And what that organization does, it creates social media platforms for newsrooms. And a little bit more about our organization. We are, well, let me start. Our parent company is formerly the Washington Post. So if you know anything of the Katharine Graham story during Watergate and Nixon times, that is our legacy. Katharine Graham owned the Washington Post, and we are the broadcasting arm of the Washington Post. We have obviously since gone through branding and changed our name to Graham Media. They clearly are Graham Holdings now because they operate as a holding company. But Graham is the nod to our company, to our founders, if you will, or our current owners. So we are public, but we operate very, very close, like private company, because the family is still very much involved in our company. But again, very, very open to innovation and creative solutions. The Social News Desk, which I want to kind of talk, that it brings me back to, just how important innovation is in an organization. Social News Desk, as I said, is our organization that creates social media platforms for newsrooms. And how this organization got started was out of one of our stations in Florida, our Jacksonville, Florida station. We had 2 executive producers in there years ago, and years ago being what, maybe 10 years ago, 14 years ago, that were actually, pulling together content to be released, and in the TV, on the TV, because at that time, we were heavily TV and not so much online. And they were looking for content, and they said there has to be an easier way, and they wanted to, kind of get more involved in creating technology solutions. At the time, we had a different president of our organization. There were different general managers of the stations. It was a different feel 14, 15 years ago, and they did not invest in that. These 2 executive producers went off, got backing, got funding, went ahead and created this business. And it goes through, their quick development phase. And it turns out that, here we are a few years back, we end up buying back the company that was our original group. We end up buying them back for millions. So that is the kind of the lesson in that, you really want to be out there front, and engaging and embracing the innovation. But as I said, our company very much is involved in innovation, just like Kim's organization. It starts with the leadership. The leadership encourages a culture of innovation, out of the box thinking. Our Graham Digital group, as I said, is the group that really works to develop solutions, and they get grants, and they do a lot of partnerships with the Googles and the Facebooks and all of the big tech organizations. And our leader of that actually has the title of Chief Innovation Officer. But we also agree with the way that Dover is looking at this is that it can't rest in one person or one department. It goes across the entire organization. So like all organizations, through the pandemic, we really enhanced our innovation. That's where really our digital media took off, because we were finding that more people were getting their news on their cell phones as opposed to TVs. And so that's where we've been really driving a lot of innovation. And as the role of HR, or in the role of HR, a lot of times I just I have a team of one. It's basically me, and we have like an HR administrator in each of our stations that report up through the general managers. And we try to facilitate, right? And we really take educated ideas and really help push them along. And then, like I'd like to say, is I get out of the way. I let them move it, and we provide whatever support we can. And we've seen a lot of innovation in really our training. We do a lot of in-house training that has been very innovative. We've done a lot of DEI kinds of innovative work. We also, just like Kim, do recognize our folks for the innovative solutions that they come up with. We don't have anything as formal as Dover may have, but we clearly do spot bonuses. We're in the video business, so we do a lot of recognition that way that can live out on YouTube. So that's a little bit about Graham Media Group and how important innovation plays in our business.
Well, thank you very much, Julie. That's great. Kim has certainly laid out also a structure. So we have two different industries. We have organizations of substantially different sizes, and I'm hoping that we're open for questions now. Please be sure to send your chat questions in for the panel members. And Peter, what do you got for us?
Okay, thanks. So we had a few questions coming before the event, and I've gotten a few already in direct messages, so keep them coming. But two of the questions that came in before the panel spoke were related to getting ideas into practice. And the question here was, how do you get management or leadership to buy into the concept that HR has a role in creativity and investing into programs? That would be one of the questions.
Great. Well, thanks, Peter. I guess I'll start, and I'm sure Julie will have a perspective as well. I think sometimes what's most important about the HR team is to be connected into the business and be aligned with the business objectives and the business leaders, and not be a functional group that kind of sits on the side. So I think the best way to influence that, getting business leaders and the businesses to really invest in and be open to ideas and kind of this innovative thinking and trying new and different things is really to be there at the table with them and helping to listen and encourage the openness, and again, valuing the differences in the organization is really critical. I've seen so often where if a leader doesn't have this openness of mindset, they want to stay the course for their existing path, and they're sort of focused on, well, we tried that before, that's not the way we do things here. And I think what really HR and all leaders can encourage is be advocates for that, those ideas and those differences. And as Julie mentioned, so someone has a good idea and you don't support it, they may take it off and maybe competing with you in the future. So it's worth the listening for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'll just tack on it. I believe this exact same way that Kim does and how her organization is structured. Our HR folks are held in high regard. And I mean that people don't view us as, oh, you're just a function. We're clearly right there aligned with the business. And when I say that I get out of the way, it's like, I'll help facilitate, encourage, but I'm letting them drive it. I don't want them to come to HR and say, you can't do that, you can't do that. What I like to say is a lot of times I will help them by setting some guardrails, and play anywhere in here. This is not going to get us into any legal issues or any, employee relation issues or any, and in fact, I'm very proud to say that our group has just been named Station Group of the Year for this year by television and radio and networks, and because of our innovative, push or our innovative solutions. And so, I think all of that, it kind of drives on itself. Like you come up with some new solution and then people are more open to, hey, well, I'm going to throw out this idea. And quite honestly, we have to innovate to be relevant for the future. I mean, when you start talking about TV and people, just don't watch TV, well, where do you get your news? And that's where we want to be the leader. How are you getting the news? How do you get the weather? When there's hurricanes, are you watching the news, or are you getting alarms off of your phone and things like that? So that is really our product. The content is our product, and that's where we have to be innovative in how we get that to the folks. So
yeah, I'd like to comment on it too. And an example, I worked with a company, Sara Lee Corporation, actually, when they had their knit products division. And that's a very volatile business. Some years ago, when the industry basically was crashing, which it does about every 3 or 4 years in the knit products industry, the president of the company, of the division, sent out a note to everybody that, send us some ideas, help us get through this, and it will keep everybody's job. Well, they got 22,000 ideas, one for every employee. And it was impossible for them to deal with it. They had no way to translate this flood of ideas into any kind of change. They were basically overwhelmed. Many of the ideas were actually really pretty bad because people didn't fundamentally understand the business. And so it was a real mess. They did come back, though, with a process, and they implemented it in their distribution business, where they set up a formal process for implementing ideas. And the process followed what has been termed a gain sharing or Scanlon type process, where every suggestion that came in had to be acted upon or communicated back to the employees within 30 days. And each unit within the company, each supervisor had $500 a month that they could actually spend money on any of these ideas and implement them immediately. The particular group, which was two humongous divisions, went from getting 1 or 2 suggestions a month to getting over 400 suggestions a month over several years and implementing or communicating back, and they held to their 30 days. So it was a tremendous success story, which actually resulted in substantial cost reductions to the process. So, what I'm saying here is that they went, I think that's a big critical thing between coming up with ideas and actually implementing those ideas, because, an organization, it takes money and it takes commitment and it takes a lot of things to make an idea work. And if an idea doesn't get implemented, there's no value added. So an example. Peter, you got another one for us?
Yes, I actually want to follow up on something that's so interesting that's come up in the comments so far about building versus buying. And so we heard a little bit about the acquisitiveness of Dover, and we heard from Julie about losing potentially and then rehiring or acquiring talent that had left the organization. So I wonder, starting with Kim and then Julie and then Dow, if you could share your thoughts on the philosophy. Is it better to build than buy? What do you view as HR's role in acquisitions if there is an acquisition specifically for a creative or innovative idea?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say it's an and, it's not one or the other. And for Dover, we're very specific about measuring what we call organic growth. So it's growth that happens with our existing businesses. And we also track growth that comes from new products or new services, because that really does drive a metric around innovation and what we're able to really measure and demonstrate. And I would say the buy, whether it's buying a company or buying a technology or essentially, buying a group of people that have developed something, it's also really important for us, because we know to get fast to market on something, it may take us a longer time to actually develop something from scratch from an R&D standpoint than it is to go out and buy that technology. So one example I would share, and Julie, since you mentioned the garbage truck, I'll share a technology that we bought that's called Third Eye, and it's one of the businesses that actually puts a camera and sensors on the truck that essentially looks at the waste in the can, looks at whether it's overfilled, and it actually analyzes that and transmits back to the company, and then ultimately bills the customer more if, for instance, the can is overfilled. So for us to have, started from scratch to develop the software and the systems to install and put that on a truck would have been a much longer lead time. So the value of buying, in this case, technology and integrated into our system really advances and accelerates innovation in the company. And by the way, one of our very large customers, and you might be able to figure that out from a national standpoint, is implementing that on their fleet. So, that's a fast way to market in that case. And we're very involved in, number one, assessing the businesses from a due diligence standpoint. And that includes not just your typical things like benefit programs and IT systems and so forth, but also cultural integration and cultural fit. So that's a big part of the integration process for those acquisitions when we make a purchase.
Yeah, and I would agree with Kim as well. It's a both. We get asked a lot, well, are you going to buy another TV station? Are you, and all that comes with it, or are you going to buy another technology company? And, it all depends. For the same criteria that Kim talked about, does it make sense for us? We do a lot of our own building, and as simple as training programs. There are a lot of organizations out there that, may partner with other vendors. We have a lot of programs that we've created in-house that we have branded that people jump at the chance to participate in because they're so well respected. Like we have a program very simple called Boss School. And basically it is frontline leadership. It is people attend that are newly promoted individuals to management positions or people that we're looking to, and we take them off site. And it is a program where our CEO sits with this group of people, and we actually we do nothing but kind of train and talk about our culture, our values, how we are going to treat people, what is important to us, and that people, you don't get that from maybe a vendor that you pull in. So we do a lot of building internally, and there are all kinds of other programs we do. We have specific programs for our producers, because we feel like we do a really good job of training folks, but we can, on the job, let me say training on the job, but there's times where we feel like, what, we need to really invest in our people and do some other kinds of programs. So that's where we see a lot of our build, if you will. And then again, as I said, with our digital group, there's a lot of build. We've got great developers on our team, which you wouldn't think that, traditionally a TV station group, is out there up in front lines with all the other digital organizations. But that's where our size comes to play. With 1,000 employees and being small, we can turn on a dime. We are well funded, well backed by Graham Holdings. So we have money to be able to invest in innovation. And so that's, again, we let our folks go at it. And, it also takes a different bit of a spin when you know that you're creating your future, because again, you have to create, you have to be innovative for us to stay in the game. So.
Yeah, I think that and statement, certainly buying technology, buying ideas, buying innovation is, I think, absolutely essential. You can't be everything today. But I think the other piece that Julie speaks of is people want to be creative. They want to be part of an organization where they can contribute. And if you don't have that kind of outlet, I think you're going to have trouble, certainly recruiting the young, new employees that really do want to add value and be part of something bigger than themselves. So having an innovation strategy is, I think, absolutely essential for success.
Great. And now there are a few nuts and bolts questions, and I'm going to direct these at specific speakers. So one is for Kim, and this question is about the recognition programs. And with the Growth and Innovation Award, is that tied to the employee performance review? How are people made aware of it and encouraged to participate in Growth and Innovation Awards?
Great. So it's actually a separate standalone program at Dover. We do announce it every year, and then we go out to all of our businesses, all of our people managers globally, and we ask for their recommendations of either individual employees or teams of people that have contributed in a way that is focused on the growth of the company around innovation and all forms of innovation, both process as well as products and services. And we take those nominations. So it is promoted as a program. We take those nominations and we go through a vetting process with our 5-segment leadership teams and then our executive team. And then we make those awards once a year in February. But we actually go out and solicit the ideas and the people for recommendation. It's not part of the performance management. It's really stands on its own, and it's a one-time, very special recognition and reward that people receive.
Thank you. And the next question is for Julie. And although I would not consider Graham Media to be a small company at all, the question was about smaller organizations, and especially those that have a smaller HR department. The question is, how can a smaller organization or HR department support innovation if you're just running with a smaller team?
Yeah, my life is basically that. Yeah, we just have a small group. It gets into understanding the business and making sure that you're aligned with the business, and that, and I get it. There's the day-to-day stuff that happens that you just have to be involved in, but it is having those conversations with the leadership. And again, what is the culture? That's what I'd be going back to. What is the culture? How are you then engaging with your leaders and, making that top of mind in every discussion? What are we going to do? How are we going to get this, it's solution oriented, that's really innovation. It's, what we're going to drive a solution to a perceived issue that we have. And, so it's, and we do it. And it's not anything that's, I can't tell you that when I did it, I started down a path and said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to talk 5 minutes every day, whatever. It just became natural when you understand the business and you understand the direction, then you start having those conversations. It wasn't so prescribed at the beginning, but it is definitely a part of the conversation now. And being small, being small is good, and it's got its challenges. Let me just say that. But it's good because we wear a lot of hats. My HR team, as small as it is, being one in a station or whatever, we wear a lot of hats. So you are involved in a lot of this, and you probably hear more from your employees, and you're able to kind of funnel that information to the appropriate people, and really kind of embrace it and help drive it. So I hope that gives somewhat of an answer there.
Yes, definitely. That was great. Next, turning to Dow, being the compensation and rewards expert, what do you see as compensation rewards programs that can support either the product innovation? You mentioned the process innovation ideas that you saw at Sara Lee. Are there other approaches that you see that companies are implementing?
Well, one of the big questions the companies that I talk to have is, should they really provide a substantial financial incentive for innovation, or should that really be thought of as part of the job and really focus more on recognition? And that's an issue that seems to be torn in terms of that. Now, I can give a more comprehensive answer if folks want, actually in substantial detail, because I actually did a survey of what companies are doing, and a big number of companies responded to that. And I would be very happy to send that article out to anybody that would like that. And that article speaks to what are the kinds of things people are doing, how effective are those at stimulating innovation, and what challenges are associated with it. So it's actually fairly comprehensive. And I'm hoping to repeat that study actually this coming November with World at Work. So that's probably the better of the answer for right now. So if you'd like to have some detail, please send that forward. But that one big question is out there. And I think it depends a lot on the company, whether you really go with a financial kind of driver or whether you go with a recognition driver. I guess I'd say one other thing is process innovation seems to be easier because it's more frequent to create an incentive around. New products, you don't ever sort of know how they're going to develop, or whether they're ever going to make money. And so they're much harder to create an incentive process around, and they're often longer term. So that's really challenging.
Thank you all. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to just add, Dow, it's interesting you say that, because I would tell you Graham Media is more on the recognition end of how you reward it. We believe it's everybody's responsibility. And that's the kind of culture we've created, and that kind of follows through with all of our other aspects in our organization. So recruitment, we don't have, because again, we're small, we don't have a formal recruiting team. You know, we believe it's everybody's business to help driving talent into the organization. So it kind of goes along with, again, our culture, and yeah, we will recognize people for that, but it's not a formal program. So.
Great. And I just got another operational question in the chat here, which is, how frequently do you think about innovation? Do you try to do it every day, or is this the once a year big program on rewards and recognition for innovation? Or do you try to, have frequent everyday kind of programs? So if we could go around once again. Kim, go ahead.
Sure. To me, innovation has got to be part of the DNA and part of the culture, that it's encouraged and it's not, not shut down because it's different. So I think it has to be part of your everyday, how you approach everything. So whether it's on a continuous improvement, approach, or it's thinking about new markets or new products or new technologies, I think you have to really instill that as an everyday thing. To me, it's, sometimes you need to create, I'll say, programming to be the forcing function to cause people to realize that it's appropriate and that you really want to encourage it, especially if a culture has been maybe not as focused on that. So sometimes I think you need programming, but I think the more effective ways are not to have it set off, on the side and say, okay, now we're going to do innovation. At the same time, that's not to say that there aren't reasonable ways and really valuable ways to have, for instance, ideation sessions, where you really bring a diverse set of people with different experiences and backgrounds into a room and maybe know nothing about a technology, and you have an ideation session for a few hours that's really about trying to come up with something that's really new and different, and it challenges the status quo. So I think it's got to be, some aspect of both, but it can't just be, those separate sessions. It has to get to be, part of who you are and how you think.
Yeah, agreed. I don't know if there's much more that I could add. I totally agree with that. I think it is part of every it becomes part of every conversation if it's built into kind of your DNA, your culture. You're trying to always be better, get better content. How do you do that? How do we become better at being the first informer? And then we just try to, as an HR team, put some rigor around it. It gets to Kim's programming, a bit. So.
Yeah, I mean, that every day, another dichotomy that I saw when I talked to these different organizations is some organizations really focus on having expert consultants, expert R&D departments focus the innovation. Organizations seem to be moving more toward trying to involve everybody. And that, I think, has been a trend, over the last 2 or 3 decades. The question, though, becomes is how do you keep them engaged and interested in it? And I've seen some programs where literally every week, the management or the supervisory teams meet before they, hit the decks as far as work and have a conversation, and innovation or ideas is part of that conversation, and then monitoring the ideas. The other piece, and I think that Kim mentioned, is that they do different things. They don't do the same thing all the time. They have idea sessions. They, have an expert in on something to talk to them. They do different stuff to stimulate that. So they have to always keep a feed going. You can't just sort of ignore it and expect it to happen, I don't think.
Maybe one additional comment, and I do agree that the recognition piece of it is really the most important, but I think even for employees to see their ideas implemented is incredibly fulfilling. And, you always see these situations with like suggestion programs and people, shoot things in, but nothing ever comes out. What I've seen is when people see their ideas implemented and actually, even if it's not exactly in the form that they suggested it, but they know that they had a part in that. And, that to me is what I hear people say, wow, that is amazing because you actually took my idea and did something with it. The best form of recognition.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that. You know, one issue though is if there's a lot of money made by the company, then I do see some resentment come back on that one. So there can be some blowback actually, I think, before that. I don't know if you've ever seen something like that happen.
Yeah, it's an interesting scenario because, and I think this is true of most organizations, when you work for a company and let's say you're directly involved in R&D and developing technology or processes that do get patented, you get the recognition for the patent, but you don't necessarily reap the, financial rewards of potentially, and that is a bit of a dilemma, but at the same time, you have to say, would that person have had the same opportunity, had the resources around them, leverage the company's, investment? Would they have gotten to that same place without the company? So for sure, it's an interesting debate. Absolutely.
Yeah, one other piece to that debate too, in terms of rewards, is ideas in and of themselves really don't have any value. It's implementation of ideas that have value. And one of the things that gain sharing to a degree, but I think Scanlon plans to a greater degree, reward productivity improvement as opposed to ideas. And so you're not giving money for suggestions, but if they're in fact ideas translate into savings for the company, then those savings go back, a share of that goes back to the employee. On that.
And the same is true for our Dover's Growth and Innovation Awards. There are lots of things that get recommended, and oftentimes we'll say, that's amazing, and let's see how it gets commercialized, or let's see what actual impact it has. And sometimes we actually defer those to the next cycle and say, let's reevaluate this after it's gotten some traction. So I think that's really, really important, because you're right, you can have some phenomenal idea, but it doesn't provide value or deliver to the bottom line. Really good point.
Well, thank you. I want to close with a really big strategy question now, which is this idea that first, the innovator's dilemma, you will have to, if you want to continue to innovate, cannibalize your existing businesses. And from an employee perspective, this may mean, I don't know, closing some businesses, existing businesses down and investing into new growth opportunities. So the question there is, how do you keep employees at the center, or how do you keep employees in your perspective when evaluating innovation? And let me contrast that idea, the innovator's dilemma idea, with the other idea that, in for example, Japanese production and in Kaizen, you have lifetime employment, and employees volunteer ideas because they know that if the company becomes more productive and their job becomes redundant because they offered a great suggestion, well, they're still going to have a job. How do you contrast these two different visions of innovation and its impact on employees, and how to motivate?
It's a dilemma. Dow, go for it.
I can actually start that one. When you're talking, especially in manufacturing, and that's where I have the most experience, that is a real issue if you come up with substantial productivity improvement. And I know that in companies with the Scanlon plan, they often guarantee the person their job. If you come up with ideas or processes, your team come up with ideas that eliminate your job, okay, that there is another job there for you. Now, they don't guarantee what job that'll be, but that you will have employment, and that you're not in a threat of losing your job. Because if that is a possibility, employees are smart. They're going to figure that one out real quick. The other piece to that is oftentimes a very dynamic, innovative company. They're growing, and and it does enhance opportunities as opposed to reduce opportunities. So the idea that it's a zero-sum game, hopefully that's not true.
Yeah, I would like to agree with that. I mean, technology has changed over the years. We used to have cameramen, as they were called, that would be having the big tripods or whatever, and they'd be directing the TV shows. And now you can use, your cell phone and video, and, kind of edit straight from there. So That's definitely changed the name of the game. Now, it doesn't mean that, you know, we've gone and said, okay, go away all those former TV cameramen. You know, there's still needs for that. And we've also had to work on, you know, developing new skills with our folks. But that is not our mindset, is that, okay, we're doing innovation in a way to reduce our employee base. You know, you don't start off that way, or you're not thinking that, you know, that way.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's about that, again, about the culture. If you have a commitment to change and a commitment to continuous improvement and innovation, you are growing, you are advancing as an organization, which means more opportunities for those same employees. But it also comes with the, I would say, the commitment to, as Julie said, to develop, to train, to retrain, and help people move forward. So I think it is a real balanced accountability for sure with employees.
Great. Well,
Thank
that
you.
wraps up the questions.
Okay. Well, thank you, panel members. This has been a great session. I've totally enjoyed it. I hope our audience has too. And thank you, Peter, for fielding the questions for us and directing those toward us. And again, I'll remind, we have a session first Wednesday. We've got a couple sessions coming up, and the next one will be hosted by Peter, and he's going to focus on this issue of what's going to happen with remote work. Hopefully now that we're coming back to the office, I think, we hope, or maybe we don't hope, but it should be an exciting session. So thank you all, and hopefully see you all next month from today. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.